I think there's a couple of things. One is that you initially buy what you like, what speaks to you. Art is one of the last few things where you literally, it is all about how it affects you. Like, do you like it?
If you believe we can change the narrative, if you believe we can change our communities, if you believe we can change the outcomes, then we can change the world. I'm Rob Richardson. Welcome to Disruption Now. All right, welcome everybody to the Art and Equity Summit with me, Onaje Henderson with the ZuCot Gallery. I'm very excited to have him here. We're gonna go through the art of collecting, specifically what it's like to be a Black collector, the psychology behind it, the mindset you need to have. We're just honored to have him participate, be a part of the Disruption Now ecosystem. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, happy to have you. So how does one, you're an engineer like myself. I'm an electrical engineer. You're a mechanical engineer, I believe. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. So how does one move from the space of the technology space to getting into art collection? Like, walk me through that process of how that happened.
I think for me, my brother and I are both engineers, along with our father, Aaron Henderson.
All right, I love it. Black excellence all throughout, generational. Let's make it happen.
My father was an artist. He was the campus artist at Tuskegee when he was there, and he was painting our entire life. So when we went on to college, my brother and I, who's 3 years older than me, we grew up around art. So we grew up exposed to it. And I think that's really important in this conversation, where the exposure piece. So it was natural for us to be around art and appreciate art, and not just visual, but from all different types of art, from performance to different types of, from plays to dancing to all those different types of forms. So what we would do is my parents would just take us out on weekends and we'd go different places. Over time, though, you realize that we go to college and my brother starts coming back home, picking up art and put it on his wall in his dorm room, just to have something around because it became kind of central to him. As engineers, we're problem solvers. So when we got out of college, my brother and I had a phone call. I had just got out of school and my father had left his corporate. Once we got our scholarship to college, my father was done. He was like, all right, I'm done with corporate. He's going to do the art full time. And so when we got out of school, my brother had a conversation. We said we need to take over the business side for that. So we use our corporate dollars to rent out gallery spaces in Atlanta. And we realized that no one was talking to anybody our age at the time. I was 23, Omari was 26. And the thing we realized that we were engineers. We had money, we weren't ever approached, or no one even spoke to us about collecting. So we could go into galleries looking for art, legitimately looking for artwork, and get ignored. And so we said, okay, well, this is a space for this. And so we took over the business side and we started creating these exhibitions and inviting our peer group and converting our peer group into collectors. I think it's natural as engineers to be problem solvers. So the problem was, why are we not collecting culture? We weren't seeing ourselves in these spaces. We also realized that there weren't many African-American art galleries, and there still aren't many African-American art galleries. So
you're one of the largest in the South. You're the largest in the Southeast, correct?
Yes. But if you think about galleries in general, before COVID, it was about 64 in the United States, African-American art galleries in the United States. So 64. So that means when you think about, and that's not saying that every state has one. So it's kind of like you create this to equate this to food deserts in a sense, only for art, right?
Yeah.
So where can you find African-American art galleries? In a number of states, there are no places. You have to jump states to get to other places that have them. So we saw that opportunity there. And over the years, the business grew. We were working with various artists. A lot of them started out as my father's friends, who were amazing artists, and they were already working in galleries, maybe even in permanent collection museums, but still, we relatively had no idea who they were. And I think that became the issue. Like, we don't know who our greats are.
Yeah.
We don't know who contemporaries are. A lot of times we are told who our greats are by people outside our community. So,
amen. And we don't, that's a great point. Go ahead, finish.
And so for us, it was an opportunity to be able to step in and kind of help with that. And not saying what to buy, but more about opening eyes up to the importance of collecting culture and becoming custodians of culture.
becoming custodians of the culture. I love the way you really term that. When I think about our culture, it's valuable. There's no question in that. Black art is valuable, has always been valuable. The Black equity doesn't always follow for a lot of the reasons you said, right? If we don't always recognize or know who our great artists are, we allow others to determine who we get to define as great artists, instead of, like you said, being custodians of the art. Walk with me about, if you're, I want to take it from the perspective of both the artist and the art collector. We'll start with the art collector, since that's more your space. What advice as an African-American art collector would you give those who are in the business, aspiring to be in the business, given that you've had some success? Like, what model of advice you can give them if you would have, when you first started off years ago, what knowledge would you have given yourself, knowing everything you have now? What would you say to these aspiring artists that are art collectors that are starting and want to aspire to expand their collection and expand their reach and exposure?
I think there's a couple of things. One is that you initially buy what you like, what speaks to you. Art is one of the last few things where you literally, it is all about how it affects you. Like, do you like it? And I think for a lot of us, that's difficult because we're so used to being told what to like. Yeah. We live in a society now where, brand sometimes is more important than even how it actually fits or looks on you, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's people walking around with really expensive shoes, but their feet hurt, But it's the validation piece that comes along with it. So, we're all guilty of this.
We can't help it. We're tribal by nature. Correct.
Exactly. And the society that we live in, right? So, so first off, it's that. So there's a book by Halima Taha called Collecting African American Art. And it's a great starting point. A lot of times we always say, and she also talks about this in the book as well, it's about buying what you like first. Do you like the piece? There's no need to overcomplicate it. When we go shopping, do we need to know how to make clothes before we purchase them, right? And also at the gallery, we're looking at normalizing the idea of collecting or buying these things, because these prices, we spend this money now. As African Americans, I always tell a story at a client who came into the gallery. It's her first time in the gallery. She looks at the artwork. She says, "Ooh, this is expensive." And I smirked. She said, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "Well, you have on a $4,000 handbag." And she looked down and she looked back up at the pieces, because the pieces she was looking at in particular was less than her handbag. And she looked down and she said, "I never thought about it that way." And so I'm not saying don't buy the handbag. What I'm saying is, for some reason, you've allowed yourself to understand or look at this and say, okay, I want this so I can get this. But for some reason, there's a mental roadblock that stops us sometimes from collecting, that we feel that we have to be experts, but you can also buy because you like it, right?
Yeah.
The other piece, though, is that recognizing, even when we look at evaluation, is that the collector's in all the control. So people always ask questions like, well, will it ever be worth anything? Two points to that. Number one, how many things do we buy that we just enjoy that we never look to resale? That's most things in our life, right? So I buy a car tomorrow. I'm not thinking about how much I can get for it after 20 years. I spend all this money on it. Once I've enjoyed it enough, either I get rid of it or it breaks down and I get another car.
Right.
But the idea, so number one, you can buy these things and pass them down. The beauty of art is that it will not break down, and you can pass it down to generations to come. But art is also, there's an intrinsic value that's there that we sometimes overlook. And art is a reflection of who we are.
Yes.
It's a reflection of what you believe in. Someone goes in your home, they can see who you are. So it's really important outside of the standard evaluation. But at the same time, the art collectors are in control of the evaluation as well. So collectors determine value of work, right? So you never hear about an artist without a collector in regards to the value of the work. And so what happens now is that a lot of times validation comes from outside our community. So we're told who our top artists are by other people who already invested in those artists. And then we go and buy the work and create more of a
none of that, Onaje. I would just say we tend to create the trends more than we're given credit for. When you look at it, there's no question when an artist wants to make sure that something gets out to the mass public, who they usually go to. They go to hip hop culture, they go to Black people, and we are seen as, okay, we're not custodians, we help sell things, but we should definitely get into the mindset of how are we moving towards making sure that not Black artists, Black art collectors are getting exposure and not just helping others. I mean, there's nothing wrong with promoting work from other people. I just think we have to be intentional about how we do it, because we're having this conversation to make sure equity doesn't just flow through us, but to us. Right. Everybody is popular now to say Black Lives Matter, when a year ago it wasn't. Black lives have always mattered. Now I want to have a conversation. Yes, we're about equality, but I want to have more of a conversation about equity. And I think that's it's certainly time for that in art and really across the board. So, so what about artists? Artists that approach you when you think about, it seems like there's some similar advice there. When I hear you say as a collector, it's like, understand your why. I'm hearing that, understand what really speaks to you, what moves you. Like, I know I would want something around social justice, impact art. That's what Rob Richardson would want, because that's what I care about. Like, I already know the type of art I'm going to buy, because that's what I care about. And that's how I feel. But with artists, what do you tell them in terms of looking to raise their profile, understand how to become successful in this creative economy?
One, I would always say, I talk to a lot of artists about their work. Materials matter. You're thinking about collecting. We always ask about, are you using acid-free materials? So pH neutral from engineering standpoint, right? So the idea is that when you want a piece,
such nerds, but go ahead.
You want a piece to last, right? So like if I have a piece, I want to make sure that if I'm selling a piece, I want to make sure that it was created with the intent that it can be passed down. So the best materials are used in a piece. I want to know if an artist is a hobbyist, or are you are you dedicating your life to this? How long? How
do you tell the difference? Because all the time people have 9 to 5 gigs. And like I think you still do consulting for tech, and you still do collecting. How do you know when people are really in this for not just pass by hobby, but they're committed? Like, how do you, as a collector, make that determination?
Well, from an artist standpoint, from a gallery, what we do is we look at how long they've been creating. So this is not something that is just happened. Where we have a lot of friends out there who can sing, right? And that doesn't mean that they're also not considered singers as well, right? So they're not. So someone who can draw is not necessarily an artist. And so I think by making that distinction, you can look and see what they've done. How long have they been around? Have they worked with any galleries in the past? Have they done any exhibitions? Really just looking at that resume to understand that. Now the price points a lot of times dictate how much experience they have in the space. A lot of times. So it's also fine to support artists who are just coming up as well. The price is a little bit different, but I think that's also very needed as well. But if you're looking for mid-career artists, then you want to take a look at their resume as well, but also who you're buying from. So if it's not from the artist, is it a reputable gallery? Asking about materials, understanding what they create on, what their subject matter is. And then just seeing how it connects to you as a collector is really important. But from an artist standpoint, it's the materials piece that's so important. It's the narrative behind the work, why they're creating the work. And then understanding then that every market may not love you. So we have artists right now who we sell a lot of work on the West Coast for some reason. Yeah. And they don't have as many clients here. But there's something that gravitates that collector base. And so you have to find your audience and understand that every audience won't love what you do.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many points in that. I mean, art applies the same way every other business mindset applies. Story I think about is really Apple. One of my favorite books is Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and he talks about how Apple made its decision for what it was going to do with the iPhone. It's great to a lot of us now, but if you look at how it started, it was really counterintuitive. Apple was like, okay, we want to design a phone that will have all these features that we want to empower individual users so they have more choice, things like that. But before Apple, if you didn't know, the phone providers had to tell you how your phone had to be designed. And so Apple approaches all these phone all these phone providers with this weird design to them. They're like, we're not taking this. All of them rejected them, every single one, except for AT&T, which became exclusive for Apple, right? So I give people like, you have to, knowing your essential purpose and being willing to make decisions on that is extremely hard, because people are like, okay, because Apple could have adjusted their model.
Right.
Had they adjusted their model, they wouldn't have had the level of success they did, and they wouldn't have had that level of success unless they understood their narrative, knew who they were targeting, and were willing to cut out the others that didn't believe in the vision.
You know, it's funny. We had to do the same thing in the gallery. Like, you know, if we were to take the same rules that traditional galleries use to sell to primarily African Americans, it would not work.
Right. Give me some examples. Like what? Like, what are some differences about how your gallery approaches versus the traditional galleries?
I think something as simple as making people feel comfortable in this space, and making it okay to ask questions. A lot of times people feel intimidated by galleries. And so, okay, well, how do we cut down the intimidation factor to keep so many people out of galleries? And something as simple as speaking. I know being a Black-owned business, sometimes you recognize the fact that you can have a business, but you walk in, somebody walks in, and you don't acknowledge their presence, it's a problem, right?
Yeah.
But they can go to another area of town and go to a gallery where no one speaks ever. That's just not what they do.
Yeah, I saw that in your thing. Like, there's galleries, like that's the if you go by designing what the traditional path is, no one speaks, and they're just, you know, and you have music at some of your galleries, right? To make us, that, which makes sense to me. Like, I wouldn't want to sit at a gallery and that wouldn't appeal to me. So,
personally, I never liked it. You know, it almost says to a customer, in my opinion, that you don't matter until you are interested in buying something here. And the idea behind it, but in reality, you don't know who anyone is in the space, right? And so I would notice that when I went into galleries, the interest will only come after they've sized me up enough. After we've had a couple of or I'd have to do something to let them know,
right,
I'm not whatever stereotype you think I am, right? Yeah. And so I think that's the difference. And I think that we want to make sure then that we are also just good stewards of the community in general. Yeah. And so people feel comfortable. And you want to make sure then that in looking at generations, like when we started out being in our 20s, you know, making sure at the time I think you could buy a couch from Room to Go for 2 years, right? You know, first out of college. So helping people understand that there are programs. We do have programs where you can put down and pay over the next 3 months at 0% interest. You know, so they understand there are payment plans, things like that, but then begin collecting. So we're trying to erase all these barriers that keep us from collecting.
Yeah, I mean, this is right in line with Disruption Now. We're about disrupting the common narratives and constructs that are put on. And I love that you didn't follow the path of this is how art was defined. This is the process for how a gallery is going to be. We're going to define our own process because that doesn't fit within who we are and the demographic we are seeking to serve. Onaje, man, it's been a pleasure. We look forward to work with you more. We definitely want to take any questions you guys have. We'll take this and we'll address you directly within the comments. Thank you, everybody, for attending the Art and Equity Summit. We look forward to engaging you some more, and we'll have Onaje in some of the breakout rooms.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.